Hello everybody. This is Aarti from Hyderabad. I'm a BPT final year student from KIMS Hospitals. So, today I want to discuss about Guillain-Barré syndrome. What's Guillain-Barré syndrome? It's also called as Landry syndrome and ascending polyradiculoneuropathy. So, in GBS, what kind of symptoms, what kind of pathogenesis, pathophysiology, clinical features, and PT management, medical management, I'm gonna discuss in these things. So, coming to an introduction, what's Guillain-Barré syndrome? It's a lower motor, classic lower motor neuron disease. It's a self-reactive autoimmune disease. What happens in this autoimmune disease? It's your own immune system start attacking your body's immunity. In sense, your body starts attacking your own immune system, eating your own immune system, and it attacks the part of peripheral nervous system. Acts as a lower motor neuron disease, and it's an autoimmune disease, and it affects the peripheral nervous system, which represents as acute generalized weakness. Because of the peripheral nervous system weakness, you will see acute generalized weakness in your whole body. You will understand this clearly in the pathophysiology, what exactly GBS is. So it is referred as a syndrome because it represents a broad group of demyelinating inflammatory polyradiculoneuropathy. Demyelination, what do you mean by demyelination? Imagine a neuron is there. So whatever the surface coating, the covering of the neuron is called as myelin sheath. That myelin sheath is disrupted by the antigen entering in your body. That is a foreign particle entering, and immune system gets activated, and it causes the demyelination as it disrupts the myelin sheath. Because of disruption of myelin sheath, there is an inflammatory response you will see, and you will see polyradiculoneuropathy. Why you will see polyradiculoneuropathy? Poly is nothing but multiple. Radicular in the sense radiating pain. Neuropathy is nerve disease, peripheral nerve disease. So because your myelin sheath is getting affected, there is no conduction. Saltatory conduction is lost. As saltatory conduction is lost, you will see generalized weakness in your muscles and arm. So next, Guillain-Barré syndrome and Landry syndrome is polyradiculitis resulting from acute demyelination. As I said, demyelination of the peripheral nervous system, and it may also affect your cranial nerves. It's a type of peripheral neuropathy which causes over days to weeks it progresses. GBS might be of axonal type, demyelinating type, or mixed. So first, the person who brought this GBS is in 1859. GBS, in short, you can say a condition involving degeneration of nerves extending into head, trunk, and limbs. Okay. So, as I said, types of GBS can be demyelinating, mixed, or axonal. So, coming to AIDP, what do you mean by AIDP? The abbreviative form: acute inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy, in which immune response, inflammation, because of that, your neuron, your myelin should get disturbed. As I said, as it's getting demyelinating, you will see inflammation. So acute, uh, inflammation, demyelinating, myelin sheath is getting disturbed. Polyneuropathy, because of disruption, you will see multiple nerve disease in that. So that is that gets interfere in your transmission of nerve signals. So axonal type, it is of two types: Aman type and Amsan type. Acute motor axonal neuropathy, acute motor sensory axonal neuropathy. In the above, two axons themselves are damaged by immune response. These are of both axonal type. In this, what happens is, because of immune system, your both axons are getting disturbed. And Miller-Fisher syndrome, it's not a type, it's a variant. It's a nerve-required nerve disease, and it's a variant of GBS, and has three cardinal features. You will see ophthalmoplegia, you will see ataxia, you will see areflexia, you will see. Okay. Now, types of GBS. Types of GBS, as I said, it's done. AIDP, axonal. AIDP is your demyelinating. Axonal, you have Aman-Amsan, and Miller-Fisher syndrome. Done. Miller-Fisher syndrome, three cardinal features: ophthalmia, ataxia, areflexia. Ophthalmoplegia is paralysis of your optic muscles, optic nerve, and ataxia is nothing but loss of coordination. Areflexia, absence of reflexes. Okay. What might be the etiology? Whenever you think of GBS, please make sure that GBS is caused after the post-infections. As a person has already suffering from any kind of infection, then there is a chance of getting GBS. Until unless, you won't get GBS. So what might be the disease? I mean, what might be the cause, etiology, what might kind of infection you can your body might have to get affected. That's flu, and then it's a common cold, and there's gastroviral infection mononucleosis, viral hepatitis. The main villain is Campylobacteria jejuni. You'll see in the poultry food. I'll explain in pathophysiology again. Porphyria, a rare disease of red blood cells. GBS and variances are considered as post-infection immune-mediated neuropathy. As GBS is a variants are considered with post-infections or immune-mediated neuropathies. Okay. Now, Campylobacter jejuni gastrointestinal infections. As I said, because of that Campylobacter jejuni infection, the immune response get triggered, and I'll explain pathophysiology. Immune response get triggered, and there is a cross reaction of your immune and your antigen. Then, because of that, your demyelination of the nerves, axon get disrupted. So on, things happen. So pathophysiology, as I said, pathophysiology of GBS is complex. It's difficult to understand. GBS is considered to be an autoimmune disease. It's an autoimmune disease, like your immune system of your body is attacking your own body. Like the disease is triggered by bacterial or viral infection. Mostly bacterial, you will see. Secondary, you will see viral. So Campylobacteria jejuni is a bacteria. Then cytomegalovirus is virus, Epstein-Barr virus, Mycoplasma pneumoniae are commonly identified antecedent pathogens. In Aman form of GBS, the infective organism probably share homologous epitopes to a component of peripheral nerve molecular mimicry. And this what happened here in Aman type is cross reaction of the nerves with axonal degeneration. Epitopes are same, like gangliosides GM1, GMB, GD1A, GA1NAC. That GM1 is gangliomononucleoside 1, gangliomononucleoside 1B. Like, so in the acute inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy, in AIDP form, the immune system reaction against the target epitopes of Schwann cells or myelin sheaths in demyelination. However, the exact target molecules in the case of AIDP have not yet been identified. So, just as I said, whatever I said in before that's the point written here. Like body immune system is attacking yourself, and because of that cross reaction is taking place with the neural tissue, your myelin sheath is getting destroyed. Destruction is accompanied by inflammation. Destruction gets accompanied by inflammation. Okay, inflammatory lesions are present with several days of the onset of symptoms. Nerve conduction is slowed and may be blocked completely. Even though the Schwann cells that produce myelin in the peripheral nervous system are destroyed, the axons are left intact in all but most severe cases. After 2 to 3 weeks of demyelination, the Schwann cells begin to proliferate. Inflammation subsides and remyelination begins. While GBS is the most common type of acute paralysis, the exact pathogenesis is still unclear. The progression of demyelinations appear different in Aman type of GBS versus AIDP type. So whatever I read this, I'll explain in a simplified diagram, and it will be more easiest way to understand GBS. Because if you understand the pathology of GBS, the GBS is understood easily within seconds and minutes, I can say. So what is the pathophysiology? Like for example, yesterday you went out for KFC chicken, you ate chicken. That, as I said, Campylobacteria jejuni is a poultry bacteria. Okay, you'll see in the poultry things like chicken, meat, and all. So you ate Campylobacteria jejuni food, matlab containing food, poultry food. Then you, because of that, in the gastrointestinal symptoms, you saw vomiting and diarrhea. Your stomach got upset and all. You'll see vomiting and diarrhea. So your immune response, as the antigen has entered in the body, they'll cross react. Here they'll cross react. If the immune system is strong, the immune system is also attacking that antigen, and they are becoming friends kind of. Then there is a chance of getting anti-neural immunity. Your myelin sheath is getting disrupted. Okay, here the myelin sheath is getting disturbed. So as I said, poultry food you ate, next day, the same day or next day, you saw some gastrointestinal infection kind of thing. After that, there is a cross reaction with neural tissue. Both because of the cross reaction, you will see the myelin sheath is getting disturbed. As that is an antigen, antigen entering in your body is harmful. The Campylobacteria is harmful, but it is attacking your myelin sheath. As it is affecting your myelin sheath, the myelin sheath get disturbed, and what happens is inflammation. and there is nerve conduction is impossible. See, if this is disturbed, how nerve conduction is possible? This is impossible. So because of that, you will see weakness of the muscles. Next, what kind of clinical features you will see? Sensory you will see, motor you will see, autonomous you will see. Symptoms may vary from person to person. It's not if I am suffering from GBS, the same person will show the same symptoms. No, the person might show different symptoms. I might show different symptoms. Acute eye, I mean, if the person got GBS attack, you'll acute eye hospitalization is necessary. Symptoms to be watchful for will deal. Symptoms of possible life-threatening situations will deal. So what happens in typical GBS clinical features? What you will see? I'll say, okay, distal limb paresthesia, as you will see. Distal limb is nothing but your lower limb. Distal part you will see. Paresthesias are nothing but tingling sensations in your lower limb or upper limb. In the fingertips also you may see in the upper limb. Related symmetrical leg weakness, because of the leg weakens. Because of the leg weakness, you'll see gait attack. There are loss of coordination. So most cases you'll see is they'll develop weakness of muscles. That might involve your facial muscles. As I said, cranial nerves are also involved. Facial, ocular, oropharyngeal muscles because of the effect of cranial nerves. Weakness will be always bilateral. Asymmetry is onset and severity is common. Proximal muscle weakness is very frequent, especially initially with distal arm and leg weakness. Okay. Descending pattern of weakness you'll see followed by leg weakness. Onset initially with cranial nerve or arm muscle weakness. Onset how you'll see like cranial nerve involvement or arm muscle weakness or leg weakness you'll see. In 1/3 of the cases, degree of weakness in the arm and leg is roughly equal. Reduced or absent, as I said, areflexia, absence of reflexes. Early loss of reflexes may be due to desynchronization of afferent nerve. Impulses and reflex are due to non-uniform demyelination. About 70% of patients present with loss of reflexes. Less than 5% retain all reflexes during the illness. The presence of intact reflexes should suggest an alternative diagnosis other than GBS. So, sensory symptoms, as I said, I'll deal with sensory symptoms, motor symptoms, and autonomic nervous function disruption. Okay, sensory symptoms. What you will see: distal limb paresthesia, tingling sensation. More than 50% cases, you will see for surety you will see paresthesias. On early finger paresthesias also you will see, as I said, leg paresthesia, lower limb paresthesia, as well as fingertips paresthesias. You also feel like paresthesia in the trunk and face unusual, but sensory loss over the trunk frequent and a pseudo level may be evident. That's like a pseudo kind of feeling. You will have the paresthesia, but it will be only in lower limb and fingers. And early sensory ataxia may not be obscured by concurrent limb weakness. Okay, sensory ataxia because you'll see because of lower limb weakness. Okay, pain, some discomfort reported in two-thirds of the patients with may take following forms. Pain, you will see deep muscle aching in back, hips or proximal legs. Okay. Sharp radicular pain, you will see in the burning dysesthetic pain in feet and hands, you will see. Radicular pain, you will see. Occasionally be present in complete obscuring the true diagnosis. So kinds of pain you will see: deep muscle aching in back, hip and proximal muscle. Radiculating pain you will see, radicular pain you will see, sharp radicular pain like dysesthetic pain in burning sensations you will feel. Okay. Cranial nerve involvement. If it's cranial nerve is involved, you will see ophthalmoparasis, you will see facial weakness that is bilateral, and normal facial strength is present of marked quadriparesis, very unusual in typical GBS. You might also see quadriparesis, you may see cranial nerve dysfunction, you may see ophthalmoparasis, abducens palsy, most common. Abducens nerve get affected, ophthalmic nerve get affected, oropharyngeal weakness because of the nerve supply to the oropharyngeal may also get disturbed. Rarely, patients with GBS may appear locked in due to paralysis of all cranial muscles, ventilator failure, and placid paralysis. Rarely you see these things. Next, coming to GBS syndrome, as I said, this you can look at this picture. You'll see if the in the, as I said, it causes weakness of your muscles. So it might also involve your respiratory muscles. Okay, that is diaphragm muscle. Okay, if that occurs, the patient in the 2 weeks you will see if the patient is okay with the diaphragmatic breathing, then okay. If not, you will be giving the person a ventilator. Okay. So lower extremity ascend bilaterally, weakness you will see, ataxia you will see, bilateral paresthesia you will see, progressing to paralysis, paresthesia, then progressing paresis, then paralysis. Okay, a muscle atrophy you will see. Okay, next. Respiratory dysfunction. As I said, respiration is also involved due to diaphragmatic weakness occur in about 1/3 of the patient. Diaphragmatic weakness common in patient with severe quadriparesis may also occur in patient with brachial weakness. If a patient is having quadriparesis, the patient may also have brachial weakness, breathing muscle weakness. Okay, you may also see atelectasis. Atelectasis is nothing but collapsing of your lungs, and you may also see tachypnea. Tachypnea is nothing but increased respiratory rate. Because of tachypnea, your work of breathing is also increased. And you may also see because of early reduction on CO2 level due to tachypnea, which will cause weakness of increasing weakness, hypercapnia, and respiratory arrest may occur. Okay. Hypercapnia is excessive CO2, carbon dioxide. If diaphragmatic and respiratory muscle weakness has not occurred by 2 weeks into illness, then assisted ventilation usually unnecessary. As I said you before, if till 2 weeks they are okay, then there is no need of ventilation. If they are not okay, if the diaphragmatic muscles have got weakened, then you should go for ventilation. Patients requiring ventilator support have less favorable prognosis for neurological recovery, have longer hospitalization and higher mortality. Dysautonomia. What do you mean by dysautonomia? That causes cardiac dysfunction. It is disturbing your sympathetic nervous system. You may see sinus tachycardia, sinus bradycardia. You may see supraventricular edemias. You may see paroxysmal hypertension and hypotension, postural hypotension. ICU monitoring necessary because of possible cardiac problems. Okay. So what, as I said in the starting, in the clinical features, symptoms to be watchful for. For example, a patient who has arrived in your clinic comes with all the, as he arrives, you'll ask these questions. First of all, that patient may not come in clinic. It will directly, you will directly go to hospital, but you may look after for these kind of symptoms. Okay, the person should have blurred vision, difficulty moving the facial muscle because of cranial nerve involvement, dizziness you will see, irregular heartbeat, arrhythmias. If these symptoms are seen, person should be hospitalized. If you see this 4 of these symptoms, then the person should be hospitalized. Symptoms of possible life-threatening situations: difficulty breathing, breathlessness, difficulty taking deep breath, then you will go for um, ventilation. You will also see drooling and difficulty in swallowing. So diagnostic procedures, you will go for CSF, you will go for electrophysiological studies, CSF fluid examination, electrophysiological studies that includes nerve conduction studies and electromyography. Further investigation, you will go for chest x-rays, stool culture, immunological tests as is immune mediated, and presence of cytomegalovirus or mycoplasma. Antibodies to gangliosides, GQ1B, Miller-Fisher variant. MRI, you will go, lumbar puncture, you will go. Okay. Next, see, this is lumbar puncture procedure. The person is at lumbar level is inserting a needle and he's taking out the CSF. Okay, this is electromyography and nerve conduction test you will see, and this is MRI you are seeing right now. So medical management, the gold standard is of medical management of GBS is plasmapheresis and IVIG. So what is plasmapheresis? What happens in plasmapheresis is blood is removed from the body, then the red blood cells and white blood cells are separated from the plasma, and the only blood cells are returned to the patient. The plasma is extracted. Why the plasma is eliminated? Because the plasma may contain some immune factors that is responsible for disease progression. As there is no plasma, there is no chance of getting the disease progression. So plasmapheresis helps in following: reducing the length of illness, shorten time on mechanical ventilation, early ambulation. Next, IVIG. Immunoglobulins are given intravenously, which show a positive impact on the speed of recovery, but it has been shown to be less effective than plasmapheresis. It's less effective, but that's a quick treatment you can go for, IVIG. Now coming to PT management. Oh, sorry. We have further medical management, like for respiration, we'll have ventilatory support, atelectasis, for hypercarbia, ABG misleading, arterial blood gases misleading. For vital capacity and tidal volume, we'll go for, and negative inspiratory force, you'll think of indicates of diaphragmatic function. Then you will go for ventilator support. And atelectasis, you may use it for atelectasis, you may use incentive spirometry, and you can go for suctioning, chest PT, and mobilized secretion. Intubation is done for the patient who are having oropharyngeal dysfunction to prevent aspiration. Tracheostomy, you'll go in patients with intubated for 2 weeks who do not show improvement. Autonomic dysfunction may be self-limited, do not overtreat. Sustained hypertension managed by like beta blocking agents, angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitor. Use short-acting intravenous medication for liable hypertension requiring immediate therapy. Postural hypertension with fluid bolus or positioning. Urinary difficulties, you may go for intermittent catheterization. And next, nosocomial infection, hospital acquired infection, you will go involve pulmonary and urinary tracts. So occasionally central venous catheters might become infected. So you'll go for antibiotic therapy. And for those patients show clinical infection rather than colonization of sputum or sputum specimens. If the person may show DVT, deep vein thrombosis due to immobilization, then you possess a great risk of thromboembolism. So you'll go for subcutaneous heparin compression stocking. Now coming to PT management. PT management will deal with like two patients. One patient is who is in ICU, another patient is recovery. Okay. So under ICU, what like it's a progressive stage. In that, what kind of precaution, what kind of treatment you are going to deal, I'll explain you. And when coming to recovery stage, what kind of treatment, what kind of progression you will show to the patient, I'll do. So coming to under intensive care, acute stage, progressive stage. Okay. And so under intensive ICU, you'll go for to maintain clear airway. You'll maintain the clear airways. Okay. How you will maintain the clear airways? IPPV via curved tracheostomy tube. IPPV is nothing but intermittent positive pressure ventilation. Okay. Then you'll go for suction catheter to remove your secretions until you see the cuff reflex. Okay. Manual techniques, how you'll go vibration with or without pressure. For stimulating cuff, you'll go for rib springing technique. Rib springing technique, a patient should be in supine or sitting position. You'll hold the ribs and then you'll do up and down. That is rib springing technique. Next, first side heading is you have to maintain a clear airway. Then next side heading is to maintain normal joint movement. If the patient is in ICU, obviously is unconscious. So we can't tell that unconscious patient to please do any kind of movement. So we'll go for passive movements 3 times a day, that to with full range of motion. You can go for stretching, multiple joint stretch, or groups can be stretched. TMJ should not be, temporomandibular joint should not be forgotten while you are doing stretching. Passive movement, you'll go for ankle, wrist, and hands and feet. So first side heading was to maintain clear airway. Next, to maintain joint range of motion. Then support of joint. You got clear airway. Then you got normal joint range of movement. Now you have to support your joint. How you will support your joint? Using plastozones. Okay. Support the peripheral joint in comfortable and functional position during flaccid paralysis. Why it's flaccid? Because it's a lower motor neuron disease, as I said in starting. To prevent abnormal movements, to stabilize the patient using sandbags and pillows. You can support the joints with sandbags and pillows and with light sprints like plastazone. Now, coming to prevention of pressure sores. First, we dealt with maintain clear airway, normal range of movement, support of joint. Then you'll go for prevention of pressure sores. How you'll prevent the pressure sores? 2-hour regime you'll follow. Like from supine lying, you'll go for after 2 hours, you'll go for prone lying. After 2 hours, you'll go for side lying. After 2 hours, you'll go for half side lying, like kind of things. If the source have developed the if the source have developed so much, then you go for UVR or ultraviolet rays or ice cube massage to enhance healing procedure. Next, maintenance of circulation. Passive movements will go FL range massage to lower limb. After that, you will provide 6th point, you will provide psychological support. Patient relatives should be reassured that prognosis is though slow, but it's excellent. Okay. So in the ICU patients, you will go for first to maintain clear airway. How you will do that? IPPV and removal of secretions to suction, manual techniques, vibration to stimulate cuff, lip swinging technique. Then to maintain normal joint movement, you'll go for passive movement, stretching, and passive movement of ankle, wrist, and hand, feet. Next, third, support of joint, plastazone, and by comfortable positioning and by sandbags and pillows. How will prevent pressure sores? By positioning to our position regime and UVR and then ice cube massage. Maintenance circulation is by passive movements, upper range massage to lower leg. Psychological support, prognosis is dose low, but it's excellent. Now coming to recovery stage, the patient has come from ICU and he's in a ward. Now he's in recovery stage. So what you'll do in the stage is, first in the stage patient can maintain his own airway. First thing you'll see, he can maintain his own airway and ventilation. Next, when some motor recovery is occurring, you'll access vitals, joint range of motion, power you will see, sensations you will see, balance you will see, independence of care. Balance why you are checking is, as I said, the distal lower limbs get weak because of muscle weakness. Sensations you will see, pang, tingling, paresthesias and all. How much muscle power is there? How much joint range of motion is there? How the patient is independent? You will check out all these things. Chest care. Here you will go for BIAP, like records with pulse oximeter you'll keep, and bi-level positive airway pressure may be indicated for the patient. In the PT management, you'll go for chest percussion, breathing exercises, resistive inspiratory training may be required to clear respiratory secretions to reduce the work of breathing. Then special weaning protocol to prevent over fatigue of respiratory muscles. Like, the patient should not get fatigue with respiratory muscles. So you should be ready with you should be ready with all the ventilator kind of things. Severe patient with tracheostomy, patient with cranial nerve involvement need extra monitoring as they may be prone to respiratory dysfunction. Patient should encourage to stop smoking. Seize is nothing but stop. Postural drain you'll check. 2-hour regime you'll do for supine to side for postural drainage. 2 to 4 liter Nastic bag you'll keep for chest expansion. Then for this, 2 people are necessary. Rib springing technique you'll do to stimulate the cuff. After the removal of a ventilator, adequate expansion, effective cuffing, huffing must be taught to the patient. Maintenance of first point is in the recovery stage, you'll see is chest care. After that, you'll check, you'll go for maintenance of joint range of motion. Peripheral joint, you'll give splints, then passive movements. Okay. Third point, strengthening and re-education of normal muscle function. How will strengthen and re-educate normal muscle function? By pelvic bridging. If it's your lower back, then it's pelvic bridging. The proximal muscles recover first and facilitate for voluntary contraction of muscles. Some of the following techniques may be used. For strengthening of your muscles, for re-education, you'll go for these techniques. Suspension therapy, you'll go hydrotherapy, spring pulley, strengthening exercises, progressive resisted exercises, PNF techniques, circuit technique. So this is the triad you'll go for. Passive movements you'll do. Then various re-education techniques, neurodevelopmental techniques, PNF, active exercises, progressive resisted exercises, isometrics, then functional training. Okay. Next point is re-education of sensory awareness. Like you'll give cutaneous stimulation using different materials like cotton, pin. You'll prick with a pin. The sensations are there or not. You'll strike with cotton. You'll use some kind of materials for the cutaneous stimulation. Proprioceptive, equilibrium and balance technique. Then how you'll restore normal function by lower limb, KF4, AF4 orthotics. Upper limb will go for sprints. Restoration of maximum independence will go by patient environment must be reconstructed to accommodate his disability and his needs. Next, you will go for motivation. In motivation, you will go with sympathetic understanding and encouragement between the physiotherapist and the patient. Physiotherapist should gain will to join treatment and regain productive and happy life. Thank you.